Oh, hey. Well, trying to get this old car ready to go to Bowling Green, Kentucky for the Ford Fest. We got a couple days of driving, and I need to get this thing running again. I've installed all kinds of Holley parts and Exos power battery and some alternator from PowerMaster, and got this thing all up and where it's going to perform well. We're going to travel all the way across the country. We want it to do well, but going a little blind, we won't have much testing to do. I couldn't find any races that we won't have them close enough, so just trying to get it ready as much as I can and do a little testing when we get there, weather permitting. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, follow along and see what all I did to it. Well, we'll start here at the front. Chuck and Cliff have been running this car for years, and it had a lot of pretty old technology on it. It's got a lot of really good stuff. This thing makes incredible power. They said it's making about 1,000 horsepower at the crank. I think they dynoed at one time. It was making like 725, 735, somewhere in there at the wheel. This is a heavy car, so it's the times they're getting, it's got to be up there in power. But it worked well. It ran well every time, never had any issues. And of course, I come along and I can't leave it alone. I got to mess with it. So it had a water leak in the front, and they left the radiator cap loose so that it wouldn't leak. The original ignition was all like a MSD distributor, but so it had the plug wires, but then it just had a like cell coil on it, canister style coil. But they've been running it like that for years, and I decided I'd just make some upgrades. And talking to the guys at Holley and being a dealer ourselves, I wanted to do more to it. So I kind of went to Holley, and I knew Ford Fest was coming up this year, so I wanted to get all these upgrades done so we could go to Ford Fest, show off all our stuff, and do the engineering, show the engineering of what we did. So before my last race, we went ahead and installed a new cooling system. This is the radiator from Holley. We got the radiator fan combo. So I got all that in. We fixed the leak. The water pump, the electric water pump was leaking. And I put in a new set of 4 relays. It's one of the Holley's, what do they call this thing? It is it's a 4-channel relay module. We've used these before and they work really well. They've actually got the fuses in it, so I can run just power to it and then branch off from that, go to the fans, water pump, and line lock. So that was the 4 channels. So I had all that already previously done because I was really concerned about this thing cooling. And so then that's already in place, so we just went ahead and kept that 4-channel relay. Now we've upgraded it. We put in a racepack smart wire, and that will control everything. I've even got all the lights and everything going through that. And then we're adding in a Dominator ECU. Holley got us the package with the Stealth 4500 throttle body. You can see this thing is just like a monster toilet bowl. It's huge. And that's what we had on it, was a Dominator carburetor before. We've added that throttle body unit. It has 8 individual 100-pound injectors in it to work with. And so we're running it with a Dominator computer now instead of the Terminator computer. So all that just kind of upgrades it. All the plugs, they plug in the same. It works great. So having done a lot of these systems, I went ahead and changed that out. So now I can control our trans brake, line lock, all of that through the ECU. And also then I'm controlling fans. Eventually we're going to run the trans cooler and keep trans temperatures in it. It's mainly so I can data log everything with that ECU and keep up with what we're doing. So next let me show you the ignition stuff we did. First of all, when I had to go in, actually when I was installing a new alternator on this thing, I went ahead and put in the crank sensor. So it's a flying magnet sensor from Holley. It's actually an MSD crank trigger, so it's a 1 pulse per fire. So it has 4 magnets around it, and it fires every time it sees a magnet. At least it triggers the ECU. And on top of that, we got rid of the distributor and we added a cam sync. It's also an MSD part, and the cam sync then will allow it to know where top dead center on the compression stroke is, because it only turns 1 revolution per one revolution of the motor. It turns 1 revolution, where the crank is actually 2. So this gets us all completely in sync, which then allows us to run smart coils. So we've got the MSD smart coils, and we did the big wire harness on it. So they have 2 different harnesses you can get. A lot of times I'll make up my own harnesses, but on this, it worked well to use that one. And what it does is it has a bigger wire going to feed power to it, power and ground. And the ground, of course, you want to go right straight to the head. That way you're getting a direct connection from the coil to the plug. Basically, it's got to jump that, jump the spark plug, but you're then connecting back to the head with your ground so that it makes a continuous loop, which really helps things. If you don't have that, you can burn stuff up or just not get good connection or good spark through your plug. And so what this does is then each coil fires individually, versus before that little canister had to fire all of this thing all the time. Every spark came from that. Also, we can go in and the ECU and program the dwell on these. So I think for drag racing, we should be like 5 to 7 milliseconds. I think is how it goes. So that gives us like a time period that it starts and stops when it fires. That way we get a longer burn. From what I was reading, drag racing, we can actually go a longer dwell, and that helps burn all the fuel off. Speaking of the big wire for these, so one thing I did is I have 2 relays inside, or actually it goes back to the, no, I did. I had to do 2 separate relays. I ran out of space in the smart wire because I am controlling lights with it too. That was the hot rodder in me coming out. I want to control everything. I probably should have designated it more just to the race stuff, but I didn't. So I have two relays inside that control the coil packs. And what I did is I went into the ECU and I have an output out of the ECU that says to cut those coil packs on. So all that can be controlled, like we can control it with the RPM. Say RPM gets above 300 RPMs, that means the starter's kicked in and it's cranking fast enough, it fires its coils. There's really lots of neat stuff we can do with that. That way they're not sitting there just firing all the time. If my engine's not running, these aren't hot and trying to fire. So stuffed down in here, you can see what I was mentioning it earlier. I changed alternators before our last race as well when I did all the cooling system. And the old alternator in this thing, and we'll have a separate video on that as well. It had a Denso style alternator, and it was only putting out like 17 amps at idle when I checked it. It couldn't keep up with charging the battery. In between runs, I'd have to charge it, or I couldn't crank it the next time. So talked to Power Master. They had a solution. Tom Bailey was sick week. He had a alternator he uses on his cars for drag and drives, and so they sent me one like what he has. And this thing puts out 152 amps at idle, and it's a 16 volt, so it matches up with our new excess power battery. And last race I kept up. I didn't have to charge it between rounds. We did just in case, but I'd come back and it was still good. Just until we were I was positive I was going to make it, because that's always a big concern. You get up there and they shut you down for some reason and the car won't restart. So so we got the alternator fixed. Plus that helps with our health. With everything we've done here, it's all taking a lot more power. In turn, it's giving us more power back. We're burning the fuel more consistently. Just everything needs that consistent power. So we now have a good charging system to go with all this. So fuel system wise, of course, we've got the Dominator 4500 throttle body, and to get enough fuel to this thing, I've had to make some upgrades. So the original line they had was a Dash 8 line. They came up and fed the carburetor, and they had a regulator here on the side of the carburetor. I think it was on this side, but they had a regulator, and they're only carrying like 7 to 8 pounds, I think is what they ran, just to keep the carburetor fed. So you don't need a lot of pressure, you just need flow into it. Well, now we need pressure and flow. So what I did is I took that Dash 8 line, I made that my return line. I went down the other side, and that's what I was doing when y'all caught me here. I'm finishing up running a Dash 10 line. So that's a 5/8 diameter tube. So these are Dash 8, this is all the return side, and then it's being fed by Dash 10. So we shouldn't have any issues there. And what I did is I took the Holley regulator. It'll handle the 60 pounds. We're gonna run 60 pounds, or 60 PSI on this system. So what I've done is put the regulator then after after the throttle body. So this is acting like a fuel log. Fuel comes in back at the back and it feeds through. So all of this is pressurized up to this point of 60 pounds. So this releases it when it gets to 60 pounds and releases it through our return line. So, and I can check that right here. So we'll do that to 60. It maintains everything before that at 60 pounds. And of course, I've kept all this aluminum tubing that I can, because aluminum tubing is a little bit bigger than the hose. Should flow, not restrict anything. And then also I put a pressure sensor in here. This is a pressure transducer. This tells the ECU what that pressure is. So it'll record the pressure when we do our telemetry in the data log. It'll tell us what it's at. Also, it can give me warnings. If we have low pressure, then it'll give me a warning, or I can even shut the engine off. If we all of a sudden have a huge pressure drop, say I forget to put fuel in it and we ran out of fuel, we won't burn this thing up, we won't burn a piston, burn it up. So that's very important. And then on this side, real quick, I got the Holley bracket for this, for the throttle, and I've got a new cable from Control Cables. They're here local and make excellent cables. We use them for all our throttle cables. They're so smooth. It's like aircraft quality stuff. So I'm still got to finish putting that in, but it has nice return springs. It's all adjustable. We can adjust it. Before, and I've still got it laying here, the guys had this really ingenious way of making a throttle stop, because with the carburetor, they didn't have a lot of way to actually set their index. So they would use this as a mechanical throttle stop, so they could only open the throttle a certain amount. Now with the fuel injection, I can go in and we can change things, change timing, do different things. Another thing, back to their timing, they had it locked out. So they were running like 25, 26 degrees of timing in it. And this engine should like up to about 30. They're pretty low on timing for these big Fords. That's what they're telling me. It's what Kazi has told them. So, but now we'll be able to get it up to 30 going down the track. So this thing, in theory, we're going to make more power, a lot more power with this. So we'll see how it goes. So, because we have the variable timing now. Before they had it locked out, we actually had to, one of the old ignition boxes in it was to retard the timing while it was cranking. So basically it got a signal from the starter switch. When you were starting it, it would reduce the timing, I think it was 10 or 15 degrees, so that it would, I guess it was 10 degrees. It would reduce it 10 degrees so that it would fire. And then as soon as it fired, it would kick the timing back up, but it was at 26 degrees. So then you're idling around at 26 degrees. Now we'll be able to take off, adjust our timing as we go. I can come out of the hole and not make such a huge hit that it goes way in the air and then put the timing in. And that was the issue. This thing made so much power, it tried to lift the front, and they were scared it would go too high and they'd break something coming down. So we don't want to do that, so we're going to program all that into it. So finishing up going over the fuel system here, originally they had one of the plastic, was it hardwood fuel cells in it, and the plastic had like warped all in the top, and it was getting in pretty bad shape, and also had foam in it. And I know one time before they had problems, the foam deteriorated because it had been in there so long. Foam deteriorated, clogged up their pump. They had to replace the pump and the filters, and it was a huge mess, and I just don't like the foam for that reason. So what we did is we built a taller tank. This is a 5 gallon. I think the one they had before, it was pretty good size. So it was probably like a 15 gallon. So now we got a 5 gallon tank that we made here, and I made it pretty tall. So that way the pump will always see a little more head pressure, a little bit down further. So we went with the Holley. This is what, a 900 liters, I think, per minute. Or is that hour? I guess it'd be hour, 900 liters per hour. Pump, and so it's two 450s. And what I've done is put them in stages. So I got to finish wiring this yet, but you can control each pump individually. So what I've done is gone into the ECU, and if I get above, say 40% or 50% throttle on the throttle position sensor, and above a certain RPM, I put several parameters in it. So if it gets above those triggers, that it will turn that second pump on. So idling around, we're not running both pumps, making the regulator work extra hard. It's not heating the fuel up so bad. If you think about it, all that fuel rushing through and circulating and returning, all that heat that the two pumps are making by pushing all that through, you eliminate half of that. So that's why we're doing that 2-stage pump like that. And each of the pumps have their own little sock on it, which is like a pre-filter. It'd be like a 100 micron pre-filter. And then we come out with a -8 tube going into the Holley. This is a 10 micron filter. And then out of that, we go with the -10 all the way to the front. I would have probably gone bigger here, but we can't even get a fitting in it. And that's just, so basically what that does, it just keeps all the, by running -10 to the front, it doesn't cause any restriction. So we're not losing pressure. We're not losing, if you start restricting something, it starts flowing slower, and so you have that head pressure drop. So we don't want any of that. So we did the -10 all the way to the front. We have to do 8 out of the pump to make it all work. But I'm pretty stoked about how all this worked out. And we've got also, this is a rollover valve. So it has a little ball in there. If the car flips over upside down, the ball will fall and shut it off. So this is our vent, and I've done a -10 on it, because as that fuel is going out, it needs to be vented. I know there is some coming back in through this return, but you're definitely going to lose some. And this thing is completely sealed otherwise. So we'll do that, and we'll do that down through the floor to the ground. And yeah, that's the fuel system in the rear. So like most of our hot rods, to me, the interior and the cockpit is the most important part of the car, because that's where you spend all your time. And even in my race car, I want to feel comfortable. We did change out all of our safety equipment to race Quip stuff from Holley. So we've got a new seat, new belts, and I really like how this new seat's sitting. I'm like, my arms aren't too close. I'm thinking I may want to get another steering wheel, a little bit deeper dish. It comes back a little more. It's just A little more NASCAR, not completely NASCAR style, but although this gives me a lot of control where I can move my hands and do things with the shifter, the trans brake, but I really like how this is sitting now. We got rid of the tack that was up here. We had this monster tack. I had oil pressure and water temperature here. All that's been eliminated. We now have a Holley Pro Dash. This is the 12-inch screen. I may incorporate a few switches in it, but everything's going to be here. This will tell me what all the sensors are doing. I'll know real time. It can give me warnings, low oil pressure, low fuel pressure. I can make them light up red and tell me, hey, we got a problem. So I'm seeing that out of my peripherals. I can see all of that happening. I don't need to watch the RPMs. If something happens with the shifter, it's going to tell me, because I'm going to be hitting the rev limiter. So that's kind of nice. One thing I used to have a problem is we had switches, and it was all right here in a box, and I had to flip them. Well, I get my race helmet on, I get a neck collar on, and I couldn't bend my head far enough to see those switches. So trying to get to these switches and make sure they were on was always an issue. And so I've now moved them up here. I've got it where my switches are, it's all paddle switches. I hit power and it will light up all the switches. So now I can power it up. That lights everything up. Then I can turn on my computer, hit start, fires it up. I've also got switches here for fuel pump, water pump, cooling fans. These are all just going to be manual switches. So if I need to check and make sure my fuel pump's running, I can hit that, it'll turn the fuel pump on. But if I crank this thing up, it will automatically turn the fuel pump on. That's one of the beauties of using the Dominator ECU, is I can control all of this. So the fuel pump, water pump, and cooling fans. I have it manually here. If I turn that cooling fans on, it turns on both fans instead of just one, versus the way I'll have it programmed is one kicks on at, say, 160 degrees and the other one kicks on at 180 when the engine's actually running. I actually had our last race after I replaced all that cooling system. I couldn't get this thing up to temperature. It was going to like 140. I'd make my pass and it was maybe at 155, 160. And that's never been that cool in this car, apparently. So also I got up here, I've got a dome light switch, so we're going to have dome lights, and I'll probably do an under the hood and then the trunk light attached to that as well. So I could turn that on, light up the car at night if we're in the staging lane, something's wrong late in the evening, then I could turn that on and see what I'm doing. I've also got running lights, the headlights, high beam and low beam, and turn signals. So our plan is, if we ever wanted to, we could take this thing and go do a drag and drive or something. I just have to run race fuel, or maybe down the road we could convert it over to E85 or something, but I want to be able to drive this thing on the street, so we've got to do that. And of course, I've rewired everything through the race pack, so right now I've got trans brake button set up. One neat thing about the trans brake setup going through the ECU is I can go in there and program it so that because I put in my reverse light switch and the neutral safety switch are tied in through the ECU and the race pack, if it's in reverse or in neutral, I cannot work the trans brake. It's just a really good safety. Also, something I may do down the road is if I have the trans brake on, I can use the line lock as a bump button instead of, I can say if the trans brake's on that the line lock will not work, but it can use it as a bump. So it'll cut the trans brake off for several milliseconds or something. So just all of these things are just super cool that you can do with these components. The things you can think up and do with them is endless. So basically I've got, I took all my switch pod and everything. It all runs down to the race pack, and there's a few sensors a few of them that go directly into the ECU, and then the race pack controls when they cut on. So between the two, we can control everything. One thing I had to do just to make this thing over the top and go as fast as I can is I had to put that moon shift knob in it. Yep, this is a B&M shifter. The guys have had it in here forever. I've actually got the solenoid that shifts it automatically, but yeah, I needed that moon shift ball because it's super important. So one other thing I got is we've upgraded our battery. The battery was getting pretty old. It had a lot of cycles on it. It was an excess power AGM battery, and one thing I didn't like about it is it weighed 46 pounds. I'm trying to lighten this thing up because this car is just so heavy. So we reached out to Excess Power, and they have this new Titan 8 Plus, and it has a reserve in it. So we're really anxious to see how this works. I know already, I tried it when we cranked it, and it zips this thing over. So already the cranking, cold cranking amps is just through the moon. This big block doesn't like to crank sometimes, and it zips it over now. So we're not too worried about that. Of course, I've upgraded everything. We've got 1/0 cable on everything, and this little guy here, that is our shutoff switch. So this ties into the back. We have a switch in the back. I'm gonna mount one here in the dash somewhere. So this is like a full system kill switch. This is from HCR Innovations. Devin Vanderhoof, he's one of the best pros in electrical wiring for race cars. And so I got that from him. I've tried it out. We used it a couple races ago, and it works extremely well. No issues with it at all. So with all this, then we're going to be pretty safe and ready to go. So there's two things that we're not going to upgrade for this race. One is the tires. After talking to Jason and Mickey Thompson, he was very nice and gave us, I did like a half-hour interview with him. I had tons of questions for him. And one of the questions was about bead locks, and we're actually going to get rid of these old center lines, and we're going to build a set of our race wheels, and we're going to add bead locks on the inside and outside. And so we got new tires from Jason, and one of my other questions, or one of my questions was that can we reuse tires that we've put on with screws? And he said, no, we should not do that. We should not put a tire that's already had screws put in it on a beadlock rim. So I'm actually waiting. And my other question to him is like, how bad are these tires? These tires are old. They're still hooking. They're still working. They've got tread. He said, run them. Like we shouldn't have a problem. They shouldn't be slipping and having issues. That was one of my really big concerns. And so we're going to go ahead and run them couple more races and see if they keep going, and then we'll do an update and we'll see if we can get a lot of data, especially with the new data log and all that. We'll see what our data looks like on swapping out new tires. The other upgrade we're not getting ready to hadn't made yet is wheelwood brakes. We did. I had Mike Hamrick at Wheelwood look at the car, and he said the front pads aren't really right for what we're doing, and the rears are an old, like a Torino or something, I think Chuck said, brake. And so they're discs on the rear, but this is like old factory Ford stuff. And Mike was like, man, no wonder you can't stop. So we haven't been racing at Verona, which is 8th mile track, and it's got a short shutdown. And I think at the end you go off the end or something. So this car is pretty fast. We don't have a parachute. We're actually almost there where we need one. So I haven't made those upgrades yet. After we get back from Bowling Green, then we'll make those changes. That way we can go to Verona, and then I think we're going on to Nitro Revival and the Moon Eye Show. So we got plenty of racing yet to do this year. So hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have all the upgrades done, and we'll keep updating you on them and showing you what we did. This has been just a huge learning experience for me. Getting to talk to guys like the guys that our friend Bob at the at Power Master, and Jason at Mickey Thompson, and Mike Hamrick at Willwood, and lots of people at Holley. They've helped us out. I was actually on the phone with them a couple times, and they helped us figure out everything we needed for the car. They took the time to do that because we're going to Ford Fest. So I want this thing to be right and work well. So it's just been a learning experience. And the great thing is I can put all this into other people's race cars, hot rods, all the stuff we build. I use this technology and a lot of the sources for parts. I use this stuff every day on our build, so that helps us a lot. So yeah, thanks to all those guys for helping me out. And I give a little shout out to all those guys. So look forward to seeing you in Bowling Green, and hopefully if weather permits, we'll be up in the wheels up and going down the track, one of the most beautiful tracks in this country. So I'll see you there.